We are back in session after executive session. Good evening. My name is John Samia, and I'm chairman of the Shrewsbury Select Board. On behalf of my fellow board members in the town manager's office, I want to welcome you to our January 28th, 2025 meeting. Tonight's live broadcast is being brought to you by Sarah Hashey of the Shrewsbury Media Connection. Tonight's meeting also will be available via the Shrewsbury Media Connection on YouTube starting tomorrow. All of our previous meetings are also currently available on the same platform. As we customarily do, I would ask that members introduce themselves.
I'm Beth Cassavant.
Teresa Flynn.
Michelle Conlon.
Carlos Garcia.
Kevin Mizikar, Town Manager.
Justin Dobson, Assistant Town Manager.
And again, I'm John Samia, Chair of the Select Board. Thank you for joining us this evening. First item, or next item actually, under preliminaries is to approve bills, payrolls, and warrants.
Move approval.
Second.
Have been moved and seconded. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion carries unanimously. Next item on the agenda is to review and act to approve the minutes of our January 21st, 2025 meeting.
Move approval.
Second.
Have been moved and seconded. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion carries unanimously. Next item on the agenda is announcements and reports. Colleagues, any announcements?
I have an announcement, Mr. Chair.
Please.
The Shrewsbury Council on Aging and Senior Center is hosting a food drive for the food pantry at the Senior Center, sponsored by the Inter-Age Alliance, the week of February 17th. Students of all ages who assist with food collection will receive a Shrewsbury Council on Aging Community Service Certificate, as well as honorable mention in the monthly newsletter. Items needed include hygiene and paper products, non-perishable food items, grain and dairy products, frozen food, and fresh produce. The drop-off location is the Shrewsbury Senior Center at 98 Maple Ave in Shrewsbury. For more information, you can contact the COA Director, Holly Luke, at 508-841-8642 or at hlucht@shrewsburyma.gov.
Thank you. Any other announcements? Okay, I have one. It is election season, but I just wanted to announce that I will not be seeking re-election to the Shrewsbury Select Board. It's been an honor and a privilege to serve on the Select Board for almost 2 terms now, and the Shrewsbury School Committee for 3 terms before that. It's just the right time to step off. I've been doing this a while, so we'll enjoy the time with my family and other endeavors. I want to thank the Shrewsbury residents for electing me to both the Select Board and the Shrewsbury School Committee. Very important roles in the community, and I really appreciate your trust and confidence, so thank you. Let's go on to the next item, to Town Manager's report.
Good evening, board members. 2 updates for you this evening. The first, I just wanted to let the board and the community know that we are following the continual updates from Washington with regards to federal funding freezes and how that may impact a variety of programs that we receive funds directly from the federal government or that pass through the state and come to us, which originate at the federal level. So we have not, as of this time, confirmed any specific programs where funding is going to be frozen, but there are broad categories that we receive through which we receive funding through that we are concerned about. So we'll keep you posted, and if there's any particular impacts, we will inform the community and find ways to address them through our congressional and federal delegation. Second, I'm very pleased to report that after a lot of hard work in partnership with the potential future developer, that we received a favorable court ruling in the Beal case, or the 1 through 7 Maple Avenue, where abutters appealed the decision of the planning board. I just want to take a moment, because I think it's important in encapsulating the work that we did on that project, to share 3 key findings of the court. The first dealt with project compliance, and the court affirmed that the Beal Commons project, which is the proposed project, complies with all aspects of the Shrewsbury's Town Center zoning district and aligns with the master plan and the town center vision. Second, that the planning board, in utilizing the town center zoning district bylaws, their decision was found to be reasonable, well-founded, and consistent with the law. and it affirmed the approval of the special permits that were granted by the planning board. And then finally, that the abutters lack standing. So they did not have any particular harms that were identified for their properties or individuals through this project. So really, it's what we had been working for since day one. And I'm not day one of the court case, but day one of the development of the town center district, and finding a way to transform and get new economic activity in the town center. So we do look forward to this project moving forward, and there'll be steps in the near future under the land disposition agreement that will be reintroduced through this body, and I look forward to continuing to work with the board and the developer on this project. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mizuko. Any questions or comments for Mr. Mizuko?
Yeah, I
Go ahead,
have
Deb.
one. When I talk to people around this decision, right, the question is always, so, what's next, right? When? I know we paused the land disposition agreement. When does the clock start again? And what can residents expect to see for a timeline?
The clock will technically start again 30 days after the court's decision. And then it will be in motion from there with regards to closing on the property and actually pulling building permits.
Thanks.
Any other questions? Great. Well, thank you. Next item on the agenda under preliminaries is public comment pursuant to Select Board Policy 31. This offers the citizens the opportunity to provide public comments during our meetings on matters within our board's authority, as we had at our meeting on the 21st. Those wishing to speak at a regularly scheduled meeting should notify the chair through our office by the end of business on the day prior to our next regularly scheduled meeting by written correspondence or email at selectboard@shrewsburyma.gov. The request should include first and last name, address, and the organization being represented, if any, and the topic to be discussed. Also a reminder that we do hold office hours, so our next office hours will be from 5:30 to 6:30 at our next regularly scheduled meeting on Tuesday, February 11th. So that's just another opportunity as well to speak with us. We've had increasing number of guests talking about a lot of different topics. It's another opportunity to have a conversation, not on camera, and a nice interaction back and forth, whatever you want to talk about. So we're happy to have further engagement then. And Mr. Mizuko, you had office hours today as well.
Yeah, happy to meet with a resident this evening, and we'll be getting back to them in the next few days regarding their questions.
And your meeting is the second, you meet with them and hold your office hours in the alternate meeting date. Okay, well, that's great, and that's part of your public engagement goal. Much appreciated. Next item is under meetings and hearings. It's a meeting with Director of Recreation Laurel Rossiter regarding an update on the Recreation Department. Come on up. Good evening. If you could introduce yourself and also those who are with you.
Yes. Excuse me.
And good evening.
Thank you, Select Board members, for having us tonight to give a brief update on the Recreation Department and our initiatives. Laurel Roster, Recreation Director. This is.
Tricia Sardignola, Program Coordinator.
Yeah.
And I'm Carly. I'm the Recreation Events Coordinator.
We just have a brief presentation to kind of guide us through some updates for you. And we'll invite any questions at the end.
Thank you.
So I just started with our goals at a glance here, just to kind of give you an idea of the focus areas that have driven our work in recreation over this fiscal year so far. The first is community connection and engagement. It's really been a priority for our department to engage with the community at every given chance, really get out there and be present at events and other departmental events and things throughout the year, including police night, or I guess it's safety night now, Spirit of Shrewsbury, and kind of anything we're invited to, we like to go ahead and grab the chance to get out and engage with everyone and talk about what we're up to, answer questions that people might have. The second is a gap analysis. We've really been looking strategically at our department and where we fit into the community. Specifically trying to analyze what we can offer that's a unique opportunity for people so that we reduce duplication of services while also engaging people in additional opportunities that they might not have in other departments or organizations within our community. And then expansion of event and program delivery, kind of identifying other areas that people are interested in, looking to engage with each other, come out and connect with each other. How can our department meet those needs for Shrewsbury residents?
For a program update, we have our spring and summer program guide coming out soon. It's going to be available in the beginning of March, and program registration is going to be March 25th. We combine the spring and summer program guide because spring is one of our shorter seasons, so it's only going to be about 6 weeks of programming until we get into the summer programs. Summer programs will include our rec summer camp program, as well as some vendor programs that we're going to be doing. For expanding opportunities, we're going to be adding a CIT program this year to the summer camp. It's a counselor and training program for ages 14 to 15. This is going to help them build leadership skills and kind of get them ready for the next step, which is applying for a camp counselor position, and kind of getting them ready for that role and kind of showing them the expectations and everything that comes with being a counselor for summer camp. And lastly, for marketing and outreach, we are going to be going to a vendor camp. We're going to be a vendor at a camp fair on March 1st, and we're going to be exposing all of our new programs to hopefully everybody, all the different people in Worcester who come to the fair. And then we're going to be doing a summer camp postcard as well this year that we're going to be sending out to all households in Shrewsbury to kind of get ourselves out there that way as well.
So for events, just kind of looking back at 2024, we introduced 4 new events this past year, and we felt that the community response was really positive. People have shared that they've been really excited to see our beloved old events still in existence with a bit of reimagination, and also these new events. So we're going to kind of continue that pattern and keep what we've done while continuing to introduce new items for this calendar year. One of those is our summer concert series. So we expanded it from about 2 to 3 a year to 6 for 2024. And we've decided for 2025 that we're actually going to expand it to 8. And we're really grateful. We've already secured a sponsor to cover the entire concert series. And we're really thankful for Control Point for stepping up and agreeing to sponsor our summer concert series. Which is kind of a nice segue into our new events and focus for 2025. So towards the end of 24, we started introducing event surveys. So post-event, I would email registrants and say, what did you think? What did you like? What could we have done better? Because our goal is always to find those areas of what community members are hoping for, what they're expecting, and how we can meet and exceed those expectations. So this year, we're actually just in a few weeks, we're going to be running a superhero event and a princess event. We've been talking about possibly doing a community camp out this summer. And also July is Parks and Recreation Month. And so we are really planning a nice and robust program for that, inviting people out to our parks for different opportunities and just to remind them of all the green space we have that they can share with loved ones. In terms of sponsorship and support, so about 2 weeks ago, I was in West Virginia completing my 2nd year of event management school. And they talked a lot about sponsorship and support, and I was really grateful for those lectures because we decided to kind of take a new approach than we were planning based on all the information that I've just learned. So in 2025, our goal is to kind of step back and look at all of the events that we have for this year and all of the pieces that we're going to need sponsorships for. And essentially, we're going to target specific businesses for those specific events and kind of help connect them with community members that their product or their item is relevant to. So if they're kind of a family-based company, we're going to lean towards more of our family-based events to help grow those community relationships with businesses. And another thing that I'm excited about is the concept of category exclusivity. So, for example, last year I might have had 1 or 2 banks sponsoring one event, and really respecting that this is an investment that our local businesses are making in us. And so offering, for example, just 1 bank per event to really help them feel confident in that investment and that we really respect them as well. So those are some exciting event pieces that we're looking forward to.
I wanted to talk a little bit about some of the partnerships and collaborations we've been working on within either the town or with businesses in town. Oh, geez. That just turned off. I'm gonna look over there, sorry. So we're each gonna kind of take pieces of these as we've been more involved with some of them in our roles than others.
So the youth basketball, high school varsity basketball athletes are volunteering as coaches. They are basically the hype person on our Saturday game days for rec basketball. And it's a great way for them to be connecting with the players and kind of creating that camaraderie that athletics kind of creates. The Senior Center Food Pantry, we just started collecting food. We're going to be collecting food this past Saturday and this coming up Saturday at our rec basketball games at the high school. And any team, or the team that donates the most amount of food will receive a pizza party at the end of the season for their last practice. So everybody's getting really excited about that. And for the high school athletics summer clinics, we're partnering with the high school again for a couple of sports-specific summer clinics. This will allow participants to practice with their head coaches and kind of get that feel of what it's like to be a Colonial.
So we've been connecting with the library, having a lot of really good meetings with them about how we can collaborate and run events together this year. And so we've highlighted a few areas that we can work together, as you know, we share the same mission. And so we're looking forward to those roll out soon. And last year we supported the DEIB committee in their first Pride event at Dean Park, which was a really great event. And I've been connecting with Taylor, their liaison, to see how else we can support them in their 2025 endeavors, as I know that they're coming up with more cool events to engage the community with.
We've worked with Maple and Maine a little bit over the last year. They set up a mobile version of their shop at our sneaker prom, so people could buy like sneaker prom swag and support Maple and Maine a little bit, and that was pretty cool. They made like a special t-shirt for the event. They've also helped support by prepping materials for other events. They stuffed eggs for our extravaganza. They created a photo frame as an opportunity for Truck or Treat, and also helped prepare all the Dig Safe giveaways for that event. We also just always have crazy ideas and ask other town departments to support us or get involved and say, hey, how about Truck or Treat? Let's all have a Halloween party. And we just wanted to say thank you to all the town departments who have supported us and our ideas and our events and programs. You know, Touch a Truck or story time at the park for Parks and Rec Month, and all sorts of other things, the DPW, the library, PD, FD. There's been a lot of people who showed up for us, so we wanted to thank them too. Here is our Rec Connect update. We have just kind of celebrated our first successful year of Rec Connect programming. This is our adaptive and inclusive kind of branch that was born out of a collaboration through Northborough, Southborough, and Shrewsbury recreation departments based on community need. So this is adaptive and inclusive. You know, when I say that, we're meaning that these programs kind of are offered to people who have diverse abilities, maybe physical disabilities, cognitive or developmental disabilities. Everyone is welcome, and we do our best to make sure our people are comfortable and successful in programming. So just one full calendar year of Rec Connect fun. We've had 134 individual registrations for 9 unique programs and events over our first year, which I think is numbers to celebrate because we started at 0. So we do continue to welcome new participants as we go at all times. They kind of keep rolling in, which is fantastic. And we do consistently get more requests for additional programming and opportunities, or if parents have a good experience, they say, hey, what about this? And they've been comfortable sharing those with us. I think so.
Yeah, sure. So something that we recently just started talking about and we have a lot of energy behind is we're talking about potentially creating a week-long summer camp-esque event in the first week of August for Rec Connect. So looking kind of at those age ranges of about, like, I would say maybe 15 to 22, and welcoming participants to engage out in the community. We've been talking about maybe doing a day at the theater or music classes, going and kayaking with this group, and just really getting them out and providing some social opportunities and just engaging in some summer fun. So that's something that we're looking to build out. And something else that we're really cognizant of is anytime we have a new member sign up, we meet with them and their families, ask them how we can help them be successful in the community. But we like to continue that conversation. And so we'll periodically reach out to families again and say, hey, now that we are getting to know the participant a little bit better, we'd love to ask just more questions about how we can make sure that they're even more comfortable with us and we can continue to build that trust with them. And so that's been a really, I don't know, it's brought a lot of joy to our team working with Rec Connect. Yeah.
Here's just a timeline to bring us through the rest of this fiscal year. Here's what we have going on. February, we begin the hiring process for summer staff members. March, we release our community recreation survey that we've been working with Taylor to build and hopefully get as many feedback results as possible. That's going to go out to everyone and anyone and keep coming at you for a little while, so you'll see that soon. We also have our annual Massachusetts Rec and Park Association conference in March that we'll all be attending. Spring and summer registration right when we get back from that. And then those two events that Carly was talking about. Coronation Day is the Frozen themed meet and greet Princess Day. People are really excited about that. We see registrations every day. And then Superhero School. In April, we jump into Extravaganza, Townwide Cleanup Day, and Trivia Night. May is busy as well with Memorial Day Parade, Food Truck Thursdays begin. Hopefully this is the month that we get to move into Raystone Post, our new renovated home for recreation offices. Boat ramps open in May. June, we're off to the races with summer staff training, summer program start, Food Truck Festival, and Woosocks Town Takeover Day. So, just a few things, I guess. So, thank you for having us. I know that was probably quick, and we just threw a lot at you. But we'd love to answer any questions that you have for our department.
Thank you for your presentation. Colleagues, questions? Michelle?
I have a comment. It's really remarkable seeing how the programming that has been offered by our rec department has completely transformed in the last couple of years, and just the scope and quality of the programs you're offering is incredible, and we're so lucky to have all of you guys. I especially want to comment on the Rec Connect program that you guys are offering. I have a few friends whose families have participated in it, and having these programs available to families in our community is absolutely transformative because it gives parents some respite, but it also makes members of our community that are generally marginalized and not included in programs feel part of our community. And you guys do it with such heart and such care, and it really is remarkable. And so I just wanted to say thank you. You guys are doing an incredible job, and I'm really excited to see the things that you bring to the table, because I know you're not going to stop here, and that's something, from day one, Laurel, when you joined the town, it was like, wow, this is gonna be great, and it has been. So
Thank you,
I look
Michelle.
forward to seeing where it goes from here.
Thank you.
Thanks.
I can't top that, but I did want to say thank you. I agree. It's incredibly impressive what you've done with the programs, and I'm just grateful. So on behalf of the entire community, thank you for all you're doing, and really exciting to see what's in your pipeline and
Thank you.
see it come to life.
Thanks.
Carlos?
Thank you. I echo that. You mentioned joy, and I think that the community feels it. We all see it, and it's incredible. So really commend you for all the work, for getting people out and just having a good time. I know I see all the programming that you do, and I get excited. And it's not for my age group, of course, but it's or many of them are not for me. But it's very exciting. And I look forward to seeing all of the new things that you have planned. I'm excited for you all to move into your new home at Raystone. I was curious if you could talk a bit about how you envision residents will use that space.
Yeah, we've already, we're in the brainstorming phase for the space. Of course, we'd love to see it and then kind of plan a little bit more thoroughly. But of course, the Boy Scouts and the veterans will still be welcome, of course, and whenever they're doing events or having their weekly meetings, right? So we will share the facility calendar with them, make sure that they still have a home there at all times. That's a priority. And then on top of that, we're very excited to have a daytime programming space because that's something our department lacks right now. We can't start programming until, kind of schools and gyms and COAs are cleared out. We're thankful to share those spaces, but we do have limited access to them. So this daytime programming space, I don't know if Tricia wants to jump in and talk about some ideas at this point that she has for like daytime weekly programming, but also an indoor space that's not, connected to a school or a COA could also be used for, people ask for meeting spaces or like, where can I host an indoor birthday party where kids can just play? And so we have some thoughts behind things like that with just like accessibility for folks who want to have gatherings. But I'm going to let Tricia talk about programming ideas.
Yeah, so for the preschool age group, probably thinking of like some parent and me classes, maybe some kid Zumba classes, kid yoga classes with mommy and me or daddy and me, and we'll do for youth programming. I'm thinking vacation camps. That'll be our home base for a lot of vacation camps. The bus will come and pick us up there. We'll do AM programming and PM programming there, and then once the bus gets here, we'll be off to wherever we're going, and then we'll come back and we'll get picked up there from all the parents. And for adult programming, we would probably add a few more fitness classes. We'd probably be adding like yoga, maybe some strength and conditioning classes, probably some bands and body practice or bands and body classes, and kind of things like that.
We've also kind of started asking questions if we can line the floor for pickleball or
Yep.
not.
Yep.
That's often a
Oh
question.
my gosh.
Where do we play pickleball? But, kind of just reflecting on our time here so far and what people have been asking us for and programming to meet those needs. We have lots of ideas.
Awesome. I know, I love it. I feel the energy, which is incredible. And I think I just have just one last comment. Really excited to see that you'll be starting a CIT program. I know my very first job was at a local summer camp, and that started with me being in LIT, which is a leader in training, which is similar, same thing.
Yep.
So really excited that you will be offering young people in our community opportunities to gain leadership skills and problem-solving skills and everything in between. So really commend you for thinking of that and for including that, because I think it's really valuable to give those lessons to our young people. So thank you for everything.
Thank you.
I might just make a comment on that. So my daughter is on the Shrewsbury basketball team, so she's been helping with the coaching.
Is she enjoying it?
She is, but I mean, I know it's helpful to the younger participants in the recreational program, but to Carlos's point, it's really great for the older kids at the high school level to be getting that exposure and leadership opportunities. But yeah, it's been adorable. So thank you. Sorry, were you going to say something?
No, I'm
Cut you off.
listening to your comments. I mean, everything's really been said. I just think, everything you've said tonight brings me back to our strategic plan, right? Our mission and vision for the community to be a vibrant and inclusive place for all of our residents to thrive. And that's what your whole presentation is about, right? A robust recreation department building a sense of community with all members, whether it's business members of the community, town departments, people of all ages and all abilities. It's wonderful. I love seeing your social media and seeing what's coming out, upcoming programs, things that I would love to participate in if I was the right age. So thanks, and keep up the good work.
You guys have to tell us what you want to do. We'll build it.
Yeah.
We'll take the survey.
Uh-huh.
Yes, there you go. We love
idea.
it.
Oh my God, it'll be
Thanks,
workout related.
No, I actually
burpees. and all
no
sorts of
burpees.
crap. Oh,
I want to
God.
learn to knit. I want to learn to knit.
That would be fun.
Knitting
that's
at a select board meeting.
And then I'm going to
Great.
sit here at
Crochet is
meetings and
very
I'm going to
popular
crochet
right now.
things. I don't know,
It's
scarves.
very good for mindfulness and, yeah,
That.
stress relief.
Got it.
Laurel, I think about when you came, you helped tape a show at Select Board Roundtable down at the lake, and I think
Yeah,
you had
that
been a
was
few months in, and I think about where you are now. It's interesting, Beth, you said about the strategic plan. The other piece, though, stakeholder input, which is the other important piece, survey. I like to hear that right after it, what worked, what didn't, improving it. But again, part of our strategic plan is an environment where all can thrive. And your enthusiasm is infectious, right? So it helps us as a community and really makes our community a great place to live, where we're always looking for opportunities for our youth to improve their daily lives. And what better behavior to learn from a young child than to model after someone that's a little bit older as opposed to an adult like me when I would go 0-8 as a coach. But that was just a really great opportunity for older kids for leadership, but also to really model behavior that should be followed. And there's no better way than that besides your parents. So appreciate that. Question I have is, post-COVID, so change seems to be, during COVID, recreation was everyone's walking around the park. What changes? Is it faster change now? Is it coming back to normal? Whatever that is, what do you see now that maybe differs or is the same from a couple years ago or even before COVID? Because everyone was walking around, passive recreation, we had ARPA dollars, we did a lot of things like that, but it seems that residents want so much more than that. So how has it changed or how is it the same?
I think it's changed quite a bit, right? Like the expectation for programming is a little bit different than it was pre-COVID. I think you guys would agree with that. We can expand on it a little bit just based on camp if you want to, because I think pre-COVID camp was kind of the norm and the numbers were high and people were comfortable coming out and getting out of the house and being social. I think that we see after COVID, especially in camp and youth programming, social dynamics are different and the way that children need to be led and supported is very different. So the way we train our staff is different. That's all kind of evolved and changed since we've come back from that. Regarding parks and passive recreation, I think there's still more call for park and community amenities that people didn't really maybe know they needed before COVID. And we get a lot of call for that still, right? We don't have a dog park, a splash pad, this, that, whatever, lights on these fields because people are out more and they are still enjoying those opportunities and more aware of green space and community space and passive recreation pursuits, I think, than pre-COVID. So those requests haven't gone away, in my opinion.
Okay.
But do you want to talk about how do you think programming has changed since COVID?
Yeah, I think that programming as a whole, I think a lot of it, we got comfortable staying in our houses, and I think that we're still trying to get people out and back out and registering for programs and everything like that, but I think that we are getting there little by little. I think every summer we're improving. So I think that it just is going to take a little bit of time, but we're definitely getting there.
A lot of the programming that you have and through surveying, you're finding out what the wants are, so you're reaching out proactively, which was an important part of the planning in Shrewsbury 2030, right? This is all part of it. Where do we, being proactive, and that's a change across the board, so thank you.
Yeah, I think I'd also add that, when we were all stuck at home, I think that people started to really find the value in recreation, and they had to get creative to find ways to entertain themselves. And so that's why we also want to deeply engage the community to say, hey, what have you discovered that you really love? And how can we support that in the community? Or, that now that recreational opportunity awareness has increased, just what are things that people may want to try that they just haven't had the opportunity with? So that's another reason why we want to ask people what they're up to or what they want to be up to.
Thank you. It's a great presentation. Appreciate you coming this evening. It's a great opportunity to learn about the great things that folks in our town that on a daily basis, what they bring to our town outside the budget cycle at Finance Committee. So it's really nice to hear what we do on a daily basis and the great work that you do. So thanks for coming this evening.
You're welcome. Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
I just have one last
Oh, yeah.
quick thing. I was listening to a podcast recently about a rec department, and I don't remember what community it was, but one of the fun ways that they tracked or that they collected data was counting the number of smiles at events. So just throwing that out there as an idea.
I love that.
We're gonna have to hire someone to do that.
That's
Fantastic.
awesome.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thanks a lot. Next item on the agenda is under new business to review and act to sign a donation agreement with Prologis Inc. regarding roadway improvements. Mr. Mizikar.
Board members, this evening, we were joined by Mark Donahue and Jonathan Scott, representing Prologis, to update the board on the efforts and work we've been doing in partnership as Prologis moves forward with the construction of a large facility for UPS off of Centec Boulevard. This, of course, has been through the Shrewsbury Planning Board Department, and throughout the timeline of not only the permit process itself, but prior to that, as Prologis was exploring this opportunity, they've come to the table and looked to partner with the town to ensure that this facility is viable in Shrewsbury and mitigates impacts that it will have on the community, especially those associated with traffic, since it's a traffic-based operation. So we spent several months working on ways to partner together, and I will turn it over to them through the chair to talk about the work that is being proposed in mitigating traffic and the solutions that we've come up with for the partnership.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the board. As the managers indicated, we actually started this discussion back in October of 2023 when Prologis, on behalf of United Parcel Service, revived the discussions that had originally occurred in 2018 when UPS acquired the property. With regard to traffic, we had the benefit that MassDOT had a 2020 corridor study done of Route 20 from the Worcester line to the Northborough line, and identified 4 areas of future work to be done along that corridor. One of those areas was already underway or shortly underway, that being the Lake Street intersection with the Market Basket work. At the other end of the spectrum, MassDOT is now moving forward with work from South Street to the Northborough line, which I believe is going to commence this year or next year, but is committed. We had the benefit of that study indicating what work was needed as an overall scope of full improvement to the intersection of Centec Boulevard and Route 20. And although the Prologis studies indicated that the proportional impact was a little different, as the managers indicated, in a public-private partnership, we have taken the concept of those improvements and have made commitments to that. And so as part of that, the contribution that's before you is for Prologis to provide the following. Prologis has committed and has already started doing a full survey of the intersection. The intersection constitutes in total approximately 2,700 linear feet, which will be the baseline for full 100% design plans to meet MassDOT standards. The town will choose the design company to do that work, and Prologis will contribute to the town the cost of that work. That right now is estimated at $600,000. When those plans are at approximately 75%, the design engineers, working in concert with others, will develop a preliminary budget. And if that preliminary budget is equal to or less than the initial contribution, which is $4,250,000, Prologis will contribute that amount to that work, and it will assumedly then proceed through the public bidding process. If the budget exceeds that amount of the preliminary budget, then the commitment of the town and Prologis is to work also with MassDOT to do essentially value engineering of the work to see if the price can be reduced in some fashion through that exercise. And Prologis has committed that as part of that to increase its contribution by another 15% of the $4,250,000 to be able to get to that point. That number is more than just a kind of a stick in the ground. The $4,250,000 is the result of work that our traffic consultants have presented to the town and has been reviewed by the town on a line-by-line basis as to the total all-in costs of the construction of the roadway. And all-in includes line items such as the relocation of utility poles, construction administration. There is a contingency factor of 15%, miscellaneous administrative costs. And those numbers and the unit costs are based on work that is presently being done in public works projects in abutting communities and the like. So there's a high degree of confidence of that number moving forward. So that is basically the contribution that Prologis is prepared to make. It comes with the commitment of the town to do the work and to proceed promptly with the design work and to make every effort to commence construction in 2026 and to complete it, obviously, as promptly as possible at that time. So we're, on behalf of Prologis, and Mr. Scott's here, obviously can speak to it, it has been a pleasure to work with the town since October to get to this point. All entitlements are necessary for the project to move forward. We are anticipating a closing on the land and commencement of construction late February. Be glad to answer any questions about the project or obviously about the contribution agreement.
Questions?
Not yet.
Actually, I have just a quick question, just so I understood. So the construction cost 425 inclusive of the 600 design or exclusive?
Exclusive.
Okay. So it's it's 600 for the design donation and 4.25.
That's the approximate number. It'll be whatever the cost is that's determined by the design review Prologis is committed to.
So the total contribution is 485?
485, and the survey's another $75,000 that Prologis has already commissioned.
So maybe-
It's already underway.
Okay, so maybe section 1 needs to say 485? Yeah, I was just looking at section 1 of it. I was grappling with the 425 and the interplay between that and the 600,000 under 1B.
The construction cap reads $4,250,000.
Okay.
Yep.
So, but in the financial donations, it will be 485, not 425.
Correct.
Okay. Okay. All right, thank you. Any other questions?
Am I correct that this is something that came out of the planning board review process? The need to work on the road, the intersection, correct?
Yep.
Right, and so hearing the concern of, residents in the area and their, obviously well-founded understanding that this is, as you said, like transportation heavy, taking that into account and finding a way to mitigate it as best as possible.
Correct. Yeah, this agreement is a requirement it's a condition of the planning board's approval.
Okay, thank you.
I guess I have just one more question. Section 4 on termination. What's commencement of the work? Is that actual construction, pulling permits? What does that lowercase work mean?
It's commencement of physical work upon the site.
Okay.
So just for clarification, perhaps, there's essentially two different natures of termination.
Mhm.
If for some reason the project were to be abandoned tomorrow,
Mhm.
then there would be no commitment to make the expenditures. Once work starts, then what is committed is the delivery of the survey and the design work and the commitment to make the construction cap payment if that's adequate. If going through the entire process of the preliminary plan, the value engineering, the public bidding process and the like, the maximum amount is exceeded and there isn't a willingness of either Prologis, the town, or MassDOT to make up the difference, there is a termination right at that point, at a cost of $435,000 to Prologis, because essentially there's been a budget break at that point.
Yeah, the two different spots, well, I guess you could break it if there's a no bid or you can't get the cost down despite efforts to get it below the cap number,
Correct.
and then you can't get it plus, okay,
Correct.
okay.
Am I correct that there's a high level of confidence in the estimate, though, of the 4.25?
Yeah. We have reviewed that thoroughly with the design firm that has worked with Prologis throughout this project. And also, there is that 15% contingency, which, you know, is equal to about $630,000.
Go ahead.
One other question, because it's in the recitals, but not the agreement. So commencement of the work, any gating item, or what would be the gating items to starting this in calendar year 26? The takings? Obviously, the budget, and making sure construction costs, because that will start the process. But what, if any, would be an issue to start it when is expected here? So there's no collar in this in terms of requirements that it's be done by X date, but obviously the
No, so part of this, as we discussed, you know, it's in the town's interest that
Yep.
as we receive funding, we continue to move as expeditiously as we can forward to stave off inflation and
Yep.
cost increases. The first hurdle that we will encounter is the full MassDOT permitting process, but we believe we have sufficient time to do that, because this will obviously require a state permit. And then the town's obligations are all contingent upon the next transfer of funding from Prologis, and Prologis has their rights under the agreement
Yep.
if they choose not to construct. So I think there's a number of, I don't know what the right legal term is, but, you know, hooks obligations for both parties that, to work diligently forward,
Yep.
including Prologis itself and their client, if that's the right word, UPS, to have a viable, safe intersection to move their operations
Yeah,
through.
it's mutually beneficial, and I understand the mechanisms that obligate us to continue long as we have funding. And then the 600,000, even if ultimately it's no bid or there's a termination, the design 600 stays, it's the other amount, okay? So the 600, that's locked in once we get to 75%.
The 600 is locked in, and therefore, the result will be, you will have 100% design plans to MassDOT standards that, for one reason or another, can't be built because it's too expensive under everybody's anticipation, and there's an unwillingness to carve the project back.
Okay, yep, I get it. Any other questions? Carlos,
Just
go ahead.
curious on a rough timeline, Mr. Mizikar, of the whole
Yeah, so
project.
we think it will take 12 months to design and permit, you know, and we'll likely get started in the month of February, have a designer in place by March, and then I believe it will take at least 18 months, if not 2 years, to construct, so on about a 3-year horizon.
May I ask?
Oh, yeah,
some
please.
follow-up,
Yeah.
Mr. Garcia's question. What is the current timeline on the Mass DOT project between South Street and the Northborough Town Line? And how will these two projects line up?
So we've had a lot of discussions with Mass DOT about this work and that project. And Mass DOT is comfortable with the proximity of the projects, that they both can proceed simultaneously. They will likely both get started in late 2026. And to the extent that we can leverage a common contractor for efficiency purposes, we will do everything that we can. It's something that we've talked about throughout.
Teresa?
There's not reason to consider that these two projects essentially happening at the same time will cause more disruption to residents or traffic in that area.
No, it's actually kind of like a one and done approach. The boundaries of the termination of each project is within a half a mile of each other. So it's over a span of, I think, roughly a mile and a half, so it will feel like a continuous work zone for safety purposes, but at least it won't be over a 4-year period or something like that if they were sequenced.
How does the timing of this project line up with the opening of the UPS facility? How about you?
So right now, we're looking at substantial completion in September of 2026, and then working through the customer's internal devices and things, and then they'll open up after that.
So the road won't be done yet. That's what I'm hearing.
It won't be done by the fall of 2026.
No.
So the substantial completion I was talking about, that's just the, excuse me, that's just the core and shell portion that we're talking
Oh,
about.
okay.
So they'll still have to install all of their MHE equipment, things of that nature, and then they'll move into production after that.
So an untechnical answer then is that when, this is meant to coincide, so when UPS is ready to be like, trucks on the road, the intersection is supposed to be up to,
Substantially complete. By the time, the UPS operation has significant proprietary internal packaging that needs to be installed.
okay.
By the time it gets into real operation, it will be into 2027, probably either first quarter or even potentially even the second quarter before there's any true volume coming out of in and out of that facility. Depending on when the work starts, where that stands, how you, as Mr. Mizikar indicated, you time that and everything. That's part of the willingness of Prologis to make the contribution was based upon the town's willingness to undertake this work promptly, to try to achieve it at the same goal. So can only do what we can do, but
Of course.
it's going to be pretty close.
I mean, I hear your comment, Teresa, that it's going to be a work zone. We already have so much traffic on Route 20 to then add the traffic from the UPS facility on roads that are under construction. It's not ideal. So I know in a perfect world, we'd want everything to run like clockwork. I understand that may not be
Yeah.
possible, but I'm glad to hear that there's thought behind, trying to sync up when the UPS facility is fully operational and when the road is at full completion.
Certainly.
Thanks.
Any other questions? And the agreement has been reviewed by council, and they were going back and forth, so.
May I just ask a question on that termination fee if we don't reach agreement, if we can't proceed with the project based on these amounts? I think they would pay the town $435,000. Is that standard? It's roughly about 10% of the overall proposed 4.25 million. What's the logic behind that amount?
I guess the way I would think of it is it starts to build upon contingency on contingency. So the 4,250,000, as I indicated, has a 15% line item for contingency. So that's $425,000 in the original 4.25. The agreement then calls for Prologis to go another 15% above that. So other people can do the math faster than I can of that. On top of that, if Prologis is gonna terminate, that's another $435,000. That gives a fair amount of room logistically for the project to go forward as opposed to it. So it's gonna take a significant break of the budget in order for it to happen. At that point, Prologis will have already paid for the design another $435,000. So it will be into the project for more than $1 million with no improvements to the intersection, which UPS is counting on, so.
To what you're saying, though, if it fell apart, does it then go back to MassDOT to be part of the Route 20 corridor improvement project?
Well, there's two components that would need to be considered. What requirements does MassDOT feel the facility needs to make? Overall, we know that this scope of work is much greater than would likely be an outcome of any direct permitting access through the project. So I feel that we'd have to determine that at the time, right? I know that we're on a really good and mutually beneficial path, and I know things could fall apart, but I feel that the timeline and latches into the transfer of funds will get us a full project moving forward. But it would all be subject to what DOT would require if that facility was going to operate at that time without any physical improvements within the intersection.
Okay. But you're working with DOT, so.
We are.
Yeah.
Yes.
And Teresa, to your point, the deposit, the termination fee is payable in two different instances. Can't get the budget below the 425, or there are no bids at or below that amount. So then in the latter case, there can be termination, and then we keep the 600 stays, because that's already been expended, and then the 435 is what's kept and would have to return the other construction amount if there were no bids received at or below that. If can't reduce and make revisions to put it below, it's another instance as well.
Sure. Subject to the obligation of Prologis to contribute approximately another $600,000 for the 15%. So.
Yes.
Gotcha.
There's no risk to the town, per se. These improvements are, we recognize to the benefit of UPS, but also aligned with that section of Route 20.
Right, there's no risk to the town in that if we don't receive funding, we're not obligated to do any work.
Right.
Right, so we are not putting any town dollars at risk through this agreement. And that's been probably heard by Attorney Donahue and Mr. Scott ad nauseum out of my mouth throughout the whole project. That has been our goal.
Yeah, funding as a condition of performance. Okay. Thank you for your answers. What's the pleasure of the board, I guess, if there are no questions?
I move the board execute the memorandum of agreement with Prologis, Inc. and authorize the town manager to manage the project as described therein by executing all necessary agreements and actions related thereto.
Second.
Have been moved and seconded. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Thanks for coming.
Thank you very much for your time. I'll forward you our signature page.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thanks for coming. So next item on the agenda is also under new business to review and discuss form of government study. At our November 19th meeting, which was the day after town meeting, we talked about this based on feedback that we had received during town meeting about potentially looking at our town government, as well as discussion generally at town meeting. And at that time, Mr. Mizigar had talked about being ready to come back to the board in late January with preliminary thoughts as to what shape this could take. This is the first time we're looking at it, understanding this can be a really big scoped project, depending how it's ultimately decided to move forward. And there are a lot of parameters if you take a look at other towns that they've done it. Ipswich was one that had done one, but they have a form of government study that looks at specific issues. This can go a lot of different places, but what Mr. Mizicar has presented to us is potential ways to move forward on this, and I'm sure we'll have more discussions, but appreciate what you're about to present to us to get us thinking down this path, what it could look like, who would constitute this, and go from there and have a discussion, and we can this can take shape at subsequent meetings. We can move pretty quickly on it, but at the same time, there's a lot to consider in terms of looking at other towns and what they've done, and it's specific issues brought forward in front of town meeting, or just looking at your overall government relative to who are your peers and what do they do. So I'll turn it over to you, if you could. But thanks for presenting this, and appreciate you meeting the deadline that you had.
I'll start by saying that this has spurred a lot of local government nerdism in all of us in the office. We, of course, love the structure of government, how they function, how they work, so many of us, and Mr. Dobson is leading the race. I think he just got a book from, what's it entitled?
The History of Town Meeting and Town Government in Massachusetts, 1660 to 1930, I think. Yeah.
A sleeper.
Just got it. Yeah.
I'm not sure if it won any literary prizes, but he's reading it. So anyway, we have enjoyed really looking this through and thinking about this, and we look historically because we do think the actions that the town took in 1953, Mr. Dobson, you can move forward, was progressive, right? And we know that we see everything really through our own eyes and a modern lens, but we've seen so many towns, the examples of towns that have moved from open town meeting to either representative town meeting, which we have, or to some other city form of government with a more limited legislative body, do so because they've experienced challenges associated with open town meeting at large. Whether that's, most of the time it's despite growing populations, not enough people showing up to the town meeting. And more recently, we've actually seen the opposite of that in towns like Westford, when there's been a major item under consideration by town meeting. They've had so many people show up at their town meetings, several thousand, that they didn't physically have the space to accommodate them. And there's also a lack of fairness in undertaking government action through that challenge. So anyway, prior to 1953, Shrewsbury had an open town meeting with executive functions kind of defined through a patchwork of general laws at the state level. And then, of course, in 1953, we transitioned to the select board, town manager, representative town meeting form of government via special acts. This was before there was the ability to have home rule and create your own charter, which came several decades later. And of course, as we talked about really in the fall, this approach, at least attempted, but I think does really well at balancing professional management with citizen representation. So you can move forward. So where were we? Where are we now, right? So we had a population of a little less than 11,000, and now if you look at some of the up-to-date census estimates, we're pushing nearly 40,000. We had a third of the students in the public schools. We had a budget that, was $180 million less than we have now. And, we have property valuation that's nearly 9 billion versus, 16 million. And with all these things just aren't big numbers. They signify complexity in the decision-making process that the local government has to make in service to those residents, in management of those funds, and in consideration of the assets and providing services to the community in support of all residents through each and every process, whether that's our legislative process, executive process, what have you. So it's less about the numbers and it's more about really the complexity that goes into each and every decision that needs to be made by the various functions of government. If you can move forward. So how do we see the purpose of a form of government study? Through the research that we've done, it would be taken on a comprehensive review of our current government structure. It'd be analyzed in core blocks, how the executive works, how the legislative works, and identify any areas for improvement. It would take into consideration all options available under the state laws, because we will be basically bound into the home rule process that has since been established, again, after 1953, but is alive and active right now under the general laws. It'd be important, obviously, in everything that we do, but whenever we're really looking at the core governance structure through resident engagement, stakeholder input, and looking at those other communities, not just the other 32 that have representative town meetings, but form of government studies are frequent in the Commonwealth, and it doesn't take a lot of really in-depth research to be able to put your fingers on studies. It seems that a handful of towns are undertaking this every year, and a lot of communities that have adopted charters under home rule actually have a recurring obligation every 5 or 10 years to take on such a study and ensure progressive modern practices are still in place to serve the community. So what could this look like if we established a committee, or if the board established a committee? We really think it's important to have a multi-step process. And the first step in this would be an investigation and a look into those tenants that I had on the previous slide. It would not be a decision-making phase. So analyzing what we have and where we may want to go, and some pros and cons associated with that, but then passing the baton to another group. Maybe some people stay, maybe some people are exhausted and they want to move on. But really making sure this is in a variety of segments. It's going to take a while. Most form of government studies take about a year to 18 months, and then you move into a more deliberative and decision-making phase. So this is just honestly for conversation with the board and illustrative of the work that we've done. So a 15-member committee, a bigger than, I guess the key point here is a larger than normal committee, so something greater than 5 or 7 or 9 that we may traditionally see to ensure balance and representation with some particular expertise. Now, we found this to be a hallmark of many other communities and how they've approached it. They want the community at large. They want a lot of lay people, but they also know that driving the conversation within the technicalities and the nuances of not only the general laws, but local governance, it's important to have some more specialized people participating and advising directly on the committee. And of course, a selection process like this board undertakes every time, and finding the diverse voices and parts of the community to be at the table. So, Justin.
Mr. Mr. Can I just ask you a question on that? If you go back one, in terms of the municipal governance expert, financial expert, business, explain to me who they might be. So they don't necessarily have to be residents. They could be
That's right.
external
Yeah.
third party.
Yeah, it could be external third party. It could be a resident who is a town manager in another community if they're interested. I think it is important that you have that voice. They would really be, I think, guardrails of the committee to keep the committee on track. But it definitely could be someone from outside of the community, but we'd look internal first. I would think the board would want to look internal. You know what I mean?
Curious.
Yeah.
There's discretion there, I guess,
Yep.
to find the best person that can guide
Yeah.
the process. Okay.
And I will say that this committee will be able to rely on a variety of external sources, of course, including, like the Massachusetts Municipal Management Association, which, in full disclosure, I'm on the executive board of, but there's a form of government committee of managers that advise communities when they're going through charter review processes and like this. Certainly share the perspective of professional local government management, but can be a resource that this municipal governance expert would really be able to reach out to and tap into throughout the process. Right.
Was that the same answer then for a financial expert or a business representative or an education sector?
I think so, yeah, yep. And I think it would really be up to the board if you wanted those various experts to be current town staff members, if you thought that was a good idea, if you didn't think that was a good idea, right? Like, we could easily, I think more traditionally on a lot of boards or committees that would say the town manager or their representative, the superintendent of schools or their representative, but we wanted to be a little bit broader in the approach. All right. So key charges and deliverables for that community, obviously public engagement being a critical requirement to get the feedback from a variety of interested parties and individuals. Doing stakeholder outreach to drive that conversation, dividing on subcommittees, on the various aspects that would be probably core in a report or outcome that this group would deliver. We would, the board would want to obviously keep well up to date on the work of the committee and be able to provide any advice that would be prudent at the time, and look for a final report within, again, a rather substantial time period, because it's going to take a while to pull these parts and pieces together. So ensuring effective governance, obviously that is the full premise of this. Looking at how we operate, does it continue to serve the community? What changes needs to be made? Maybe none. And then making suggestions on any of those changes through a collaborative process and coming up with the best outcomes for the community. I will just add that the committee could also rely on a variety of consultants, and those consultants include the state's Division of Local Services. The Division of Local Services provides a lot of research and support the communities, and form of government studies is one of those areas. The Division of Local Services provided a financial analysis, a financial governance analysis to the community in 2016. We could share that report with the board. It really looked at how the internal aspects of the town operated with, its town manager, accountant, treasurer, collector, and recommended a position at the assistant town manager level, which we currently have, for administration and finance. So they do provide very valuable insight. They obviously see the workings of a lot of communities, and they could be looked to as a resource with a broader, narrow scope if the committee was so interested in having that level of support. The best part of DLS is they do those studies without any additional cost to the community, but of course there would be an option to also go out and leverage paid financial consultants, obviously subject to appropriation if the committee needed that level of support. So again, this is just encapsulating the work that we've done, and really the first and what I would imagine would be a series of conversations with the community or with the board as you look forward to taking on this big task.
May I ask, what costs do we anticipate being associated with this study? So you mentioned consultants that, may or may not be utilized. Is there, looking at other communities, like what might we anticipate being the cost?
Yeah, I don't think the cost is going to be very great. I think there's a lot of work to be done, but from what we can see in a lot of communities, it's done largely through that larger body. It's one of the reasons the committee is so big, is to kind of share the workload. I think inherently you do want input where needed from experts and outside consultants, but the majority of the work to be done by the people that have experienced our services and our town meeting at work and really have that intimate knowledge, rather than broader trends or relying on practices that other communities use. It would certainly be part of the process, but I think it's a little bit different than bringing in an expert to advise us on a more finite area like financial management or something like that.
Thank you.
So the 2007 and 2000 fiscal study committees, we had 30 members. It was 2-2-2, so 2 from FinCom, Board of Selectmen then, and the school committee. There were 18 appointed by the moderator, and then 6 at large from the select board. I think that's too big for this, but looking at other communities, given that like Andover has 10 people, at least at the last leg when they generated their report, so probably go not 30 this time. That made sense. It was discreet. We did the work in several months. This is going to take more than that. It's going to be hard to keep that many people for that long. But one area, Kevin, I think that's going to be important is to help shape at least the path, not give necessarily each decision tree, but a DLS or the like up front, because everyone's already pretty stretched. So to have a dedicated member of your office providing time, I mean, that's something that would have to evaluate. But if DLS could come in and at least help shape some of the arguments, I think that would go a long way, which at least sets guardrails. Doesn't mean that's even ultimately where we land within them, but at least it puts issues up for consideration so we can look at who are our comparators, what do they do, what are issues for consideration, and then take it from there. So at least it's some work from, to Michelle's point, that would be no additional cost, or even if we use a consultant, but I think that would help shape this process, whatever this process is. Because looking real quickly, and I doesn't do what you guys have done justice, but we saw this with Ipswich when we were looking, at their government study committee, when they were looking at their planning board, and some look at discrete issues, some do exactly what we've done, and they're in between and members, and there's just a lot to unpack here, or it could be a lot more to unpack, and we just want to make sure we get results and keep interest of participants. I think it's a really cool project. We've heard a lot at town meeting. One of the reports that was included in our materials was DLS for Littleton, right? And this is something going forward we could make a habit where we should evaluate us on, not every year, but every 10 years or so, to make sure what we do still makes sense. And that's something that had been brought up at town meeting. We heard it again at this town meeting, and that's why we thought it made sense. So the maiden voyage, it's ideally to get some shape from folks that have done this before, not tell us what we should look at, but an approach, some data, some comparisons, and then to shape it from there. And then after that, I think we'll have a report to look at if we want to continue to evaluate it, unless it's a specific issue. But that's what I see here. And then we talk at our workshop as well, and additional information that we learn, and start to shape this, and obviously at our subsequent meetings to have discussions on this too. But it's really good work. There's a lot out there, but that still doesn't mean it's right for us. That's the biggest thing, right? Shrewsbury is, like you said, in 1953, very forward-thinking. And it still works well, but does it work where we need it to work either 5 years from now, 2030, 5 years from now, or after that, or the things that we should think about, or what we can improve upon? But to me, it's such a large concept without some shape, then you run the risk that you won't get done. So that's the 18 months is longer than we've had anything in terms of the two fiscal study committees. So I think if we can get some parameters and some issues to consider, and if it organically moves beyond that, that's fine, but at least if it gives some shape so people know what they're signing up for too. And it goes to what are the experts' role in this, and what our desired outcome will be. Getting that, it's early, but those are things I think we need to nail down a little better, so we can tell somebody when they're volunteering, this is what we're looking for you at this part of the project. And this is what we ultimately want to do.
Agree. It can't be so broad. I do like the idea of external perspectives, if nothing else, than just to educate the stakeholders who are directly involved in terms of what the potential options are, and what maybe best practices are in other cities, towns, et cetera. And I think also just to, make sure that everybody's clear, like no one's going into this with any preconceived outcome. And I think that will be important to the process, is that it's open, but obviously there are, perhaps considerations that just don't make any sense. So, making sure that we don't have it so open-ended that we never get to a conclusion. And so I'm just kind of repeating what you said. I think that having other voices and other resources, experts in various areas, help to support the group as they go through the process. But, if it gets done sooner than 12 to 18 months, great. But I think we're just trying to be realistic because we want to be extremely thoughtful. And I think obviously we're committed to the community engagement portion of it and getting feedback in different ways. But part of getting feedback is then educating those residents on sort of the spectrum of options. So,
I think that's where that foundational document comes in,
Yeah.
right? That there's something for people to
Respond.
read,
Yeah.
to get some background. Otherwise, you're just
right, it's
kind of
just
out there.
right.
It's nebulous, and you can't really figure out what you're supposed to be doing. So I hear what you're saying. I think you're correct that there needs to be something to provide a foundation before you can actually put a committee together to act and expect them to pull out of the air what's the best path forward.
be an upfront DLS or something of the equivalent, just to give issues to consider and thought, as opposed to the abstract. So, but yeah, who knows where it will go? But there's still gonna be a subset of issues that are out there. There's a universe of other communities that will give us issues to consider, and not sure where we'll land. But a lot of those we're gonna have issues unique to Shrewsbury too, so some form to it.
And I do think that upfront, refresher on what is required in Shrewsbury to make Shrewsbury run, and how, we think of government, and I know this is sort of it's just town meeting and there are certain decisions that people disagree with. It's so much broader than that. I mean, we're a $180 million operation, and so it's really important for people to understand there's a lot of day-to-day governing that happens, and people need to understand the consequences of wholesale change to that. So maybe just starting with, this is Shrewsbury, this is today. People can then sort of debate what's working, what's not working. Then you go into, here are other forms of government. And, then we have to look at impacts, pros and cons to Shrewsbury. And then, sort of, you kind of said that decision tree. I think that's where it kind of comes in when you start to really look at what might change and why, and ultimately what the recommendation is.
It's a great start. It's really good work, and thanks for pulling it together with everything that's going on, and it's budget season, and 2 months, and got a lot of things to think about, and there's a lot to decide on going forward, but this frames it up nicely to start to think about actually what do we need to provide parameters to be able to move this forward, and we'll have a lot of discussions over the next couple of months to really give this more shape, but appreciate all the effort here. It's good work. So next item. Next item on the agenda is to review and act on the recommendation of Selco relative to the request of Aileen Thurber for a streetlight in the vicinity of the Bowden Street and Keys House Road intersection. This came before us back at our December 10th, 2024 meeting. We sent it to Selco. They sent it back to us, and part of that process, and we can examine that going forward, is just to give us an idea as to what it would cost from a budget standpoint. But we've talked about this before, and Selco came back and said they recommend streetlight request to accommodate in the vicinity of Bowden Street and Keys House Road. And letters attached. One LED light fixture to be installed at 2 Keys House Road as shown in the attached plan. If there aren't any questions or comments, is there a motion?
Move approval.
Second.
Have been moved and seconded. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously. Next item on the agenda is to review and act to authorize the town manager to obtain a quote from the Massachusetts Interlocal Insurance Association. This item requests that we authorize the town manager to obtain a health insurance quote from MIIA. The MIIA is affiliated with the Massachusetts Municipal Association and provides various insurances to municipalities in the Commonwealth. In order to provide a quote for the provision of health insurance benefits to town employees, MIIA requires authorization from the Select Board. Anything else, Mr. Mizikar, to add to that, or it's pretty straightforward?
Yeah, it's rather straightforward, but the overall process that we're undertaking is robust. We're really actively pursuing and investigating the mechanism in which we procure our health insurance for cost-saving measures that benefit both town employees and the town in our operating budget. So this is just one of the many things that we're pursuing towards that end, and this one does require a select board vote.
Okay. If there aren't any questions or comments, I'll entertain a motion.
So moved.
Second.
Have moved and seconded. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously. Next item, under item 12, is to review and act to appoint one member to the Shrewsbury Development Corporation Board of Directors for a 5-year term to expire on January 31st, 2030. We appreciate, there were 4 applicants for this, so we appreciate that, all very qualified. The process that we've done in the past is Mr. Dobson sends out to each individual member a ballot, and that ballot is only returned to Mr. Dobson, and he tabulates the results in which I received right before this meeting. At no other time does anyone know what others are doing. Have the results, and the one receiving the most votes is Gayatri Natarajan would be the one who would be appointed to the SDC. If there aren't any questions or comments, I'll entertain a motion to appoint Ms. Gayatri Natarajan of 44 Cherry Street for a 5-year term to the Shrewsbury Development Corporation Board of Directors to expire on January 31st, 2030.
So moved. Second.
And then moved and seconded. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously. Again, thank you to all those who applied. We have 2 items in correspondence. We have a letter dated January 17th, 2025 from the Department of Public Utilities regarding requests for comments and data. So noted. And then item 14, we have a letter dated January 21st, 2025 from Nick Repetka, Highway Division Manager, regarding recent 6-inch snowfall. Just give a little facts and figures. We like to see that. The highway staff, just want to thank them as well for their hard work. They started their work by treating the roads. There were a total of 25 town-owned and 24 contracted pieces of equipment deployed for the plowing operation, which was completed by 9:30 on Monday, January 20th. The total snow removal cost was about $75,000, which is about $13,000 per an inch. Hopefully, we don't have too much snowfall going forward, but we've been fortunate so far this winter as well. So thanks to all the individuals that help keep our roads safe. So noted. That is all we have this evening. So if there aren't anything else to talk about, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved. Second.
Have been moved and seconded. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
We are adjourned. Thank you for joining us. We'll see you in February. Have a good night.